I've had a lot of grievous and traumatic experiences as a young child. And if I'm honest with myself, I really struggle with allowing these experiences to kind of put me in a mindset where I'm victimizing myself. In 2003, 22 years ago, I was around 12 years old. I lived in a city, I live in Howard County, Maryland, and I was residing in the city of Laurel. Growing up, we always had the Howard County police coming to our house, banging on our doors. You know, for my older brother, he had a lot of warrants and stuff like that, but also they would come for domestic violence disputes a lot. And that was a thing that, happened quite frequently and normally in my house. The next event that I'm getting ready to describe is particularly quite frightening to me and traumatic, and it would leave an impression on my heart and my mind to this day, 22 years later. So I want to share that situation with you. So the memory starts off with my mother and father verbally arguing. However, within an instant, it turned physical and they started to physically wrestle one another. So I'm standing at the end of the hallway and I'm facing the hallway, and there's about 4 different rooms, like 2 on the left, 2 on the right, and then there's one in the back of the hallway. And I'm standing and my parents are wrestling each other, and right behind them is a dark room. And as they wrestle with one another very violently and very aggressively, they're moving towards this dark room. And then like for me, how I felt in that moment was I was extremely afraid and fearful. I felt like my heart thumping because I did not know what to expect. I did not know what was going to happen. So it was an extremely frightening moment for me. So eventually they fall back into the room as they're wrestling inside of the room, and it's completely dark. At this point, I'm looking at that room. The door is open. I don't see anything. All I hear is kind of my mother sobbing and panting for breath while she's wrestling. I hear furniture being moved around. I hear my father grunting and groaning, and basically just wrestling in the dark. And that's all I saw. And it was extremely frightening, and I was extremely afraid at what was going to happen. So just inferring on what possibly could have happened in that dark room is my dad had his arm or some type of sheet or something around my mother's neck and almost maybe possibly strangling her in that room. And so that is when I heard my mom say, there was like quick pause while they were in the dark room. There was a pause, and I heard her saying to him, "Hey, I cannot breathe. I can't breathe." But she said it in kind of like a sobbing, because it seemed like she's kind of crying and trying to gasp for breath and trying to breathe while she's communicating like, "Hey, I can't breathe." And then he's like, my dad, very brashly said, "Hey, well, I told you to leave me alone, or I told you you should have been doing that. Now, you need to stop. And I told you to leave me alone." So after he said that, it seemed like he had somehow gotten control of her body and they had stopped wrestling. The memory kind of fades, to black from there in my mind. And the next memory I have is my mom standing in front of the dining room table, and the police come in from the back door, and they open the door up, and they're like running a light under her neck because I think she told them like, "Hey, he was trying to strangle me," and stuff like that. So they're running a light on her neck to see if they could see any indication that she was being physically assaulted. And so, the next thing I remember the police saying to my mom, like, "Hey, I really apologize. I don't see any physical indication that he was actually strangling your neck. There's no red mark around your neck. There's nothing. I don't see anything. And I really want to take him to jail, but I cannot. I'm sorry, ma'am." Another memory I have is like my mom standing there, and like as the police is running the light across her neck to see for any bruises, like just her body was just like, it seemed like she was just like overwhelmed, like she was really breathing very heavily. And I mean, it just wasn't a pleasant sight. She seemed like her nerves were really, she seemed like she was very disturbed and her nerves were very shaken. She was shaking all over her body. Her whole body was just shaking, like she couldn't really control her nerves. She was sobbing and kind of crying as well in that moment. And I mean, that whole situation, it just was extremely frightening for me. I mean, I didn't know what to put of it, and again, we walked away like nothing ever happened. We never talked about it. My dad never brought it up to me. My mom never brought it up to me. It was just complete, total silence. And so that really affected me and disturbed me, but that's another memory of trauma that I have.